Nintendo released Super Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1996, as it was the last Mario game for the console. When originally released, it was critically hailed by analysts and respected by gamers, being an extraordinarily complex game, considering the limitations with gaming technology at the time. Soon after its release, however, players of the game desired more but never got anything. But the speculative scenario is this: Nintendo purposely refused to remake Super Mario RPG for decades. The role-playing game for Mario was released in March of 1996. On the Nintendo 64 successor console was released just a few months later in June of 1996. Nintendo had large developmental teams for the Ultra 64 console and a small team for the role-playing game. Executives desired a game for Mario in the role-playing format, but did not necessarily know how to do it. As a result, Square was contacted and contracted for development of the game. This was why the dynamics of Super Mario RPG were revolutionary in gaming for the time, and even in the modern era of video games, the role-playing game is remarkably intact for an experience that is now decades old. In Japan, the game was a monumental success, and the sales for it in the United States were more than expected, as critics were mostly positive with the experience and remarked of it that it had the feel of a Final Fantasy game with Mario aesthetics. This was the first and only time that such would ever occur, as further details with it had it that though the role-playing game was groundbreaking in the field of video games, it was much like the older Final Fantasy games were known for, excessively difficult and requiring time with effort to fully complete or even experience. As a result, some players didn't even finish the game, and casual gamers instead decided to focus their attention on efforts with the release of the Nintendo 64. In the years or decades since the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Mario RPG later became an underrated gaming experience, and due to it being overshadowed by the importance of the Nintendo 64, this wouldn't be forgotten by gamers or Nintendo itself. From information now known, due to the success of Super Mario RPG in Japan and the United States, there were plans for a potential sequel, with Square to once again conceive of the dynamics with the game and to implement them for a Final Fantasy-style Mario gaming experience once more. But by then, Square was putting all of its resources into the development of Final Fantasy VII, so nothing could be or would be spared for the development of the sequel to Mario's role-playing game. Instead, Nintendo developed the game itself with support from Intelligence Games, but as a result of the lack of Square's assistance with the role-playing game, it later transformed into the first of the Paper Mario series. When the gaming community learned that the Super Mario role-playing game sequel was being rebranded as Paper Mario, Nintendo faced a fair amount of criticisms for this reversal, especially with how the original Paper Mario was received by critics and gamers of the time. While it was considered to be a decent gaming experience, many had expected something similar to the previous Super Mario RPG. Nearly 30 years from the release of the original Super Mario role-playing game, a remake was released for the Nintendo Switch. Again, this game was developed without Square and rebranded as the modern Super Mario RPG-based experience. And while it was considered a fresh interpretation on the original role-playing game, there were those who wondered what a modern Super Mario role-playing game could have been like if Square was the said developer, much like the original one so long ago.